Hi, good afternoon. I'm going to talk about this Ganesha on the dashboard. Now, why Ganesha on the dashboard? You know, we all look for a very auspicious day to buy our cars. We make sure that when we leave home for taking the delivery of the vehicle, it's not Rao Kalam. We make sure that we do our Ayudh Puja annually, very religiously. We did it 2 days ago with all the garlands and everything. We stick a nice plastic Ganesha on the dashboard. In fact, most often, you know, the showroom itself sticks it up for you. All this we do for our safety. Then we drive without seat belts very often. And when we do, it's only because otherwise I might get fined. Otherwise, you know, very often in cities, you tell a driver, why aren't you wearing your seat belt? He'll say, oh, yahan pe compulsory nahi hai, you know. Now, this morning I was reading the Hindu. I believe the traffic constables are trying to remove the sunscreens on the side windows of the cars because often it reduces your visibility from the sides. It's quite apart from the other angles, it's also an accident risk. And the population is up in arms. They're all objecting. Why do you want to remove my sun shields? There were some statistics this morning again in the Hindu which says there's a particular temple almost in the middle of the road in Madras on a city where every two-wheeler and every four-wheeler will stop, throw some money to make sure that the future will be safe. And yet in our country we have more than 5 lakh people dying. More than 1.5 lakh people dying and more than 5 lakh people getting seriously injured on road accidents because we don't want to take the minimal scientific care that we can actually take, but we do not take the necessary precautions. Now that's how the Ganesha on the dashboard came in. But then that's not the only one. You know, for instance, supposing I suddenly lose my job. I'm in the IT sector, the sector is going slow, I lose my job. Supposing my kid in class 5 fractures the arm for some reason in the school, he fell off somewhere and broke the arm. And my old grandmother, who's probably 93, has been diagnosed with cancer. Okay? And then an uncle comes along home in the evening and he listens to the story. Oh, you lost your job? Your son has a fracture? Your grandmother has cancer? But of course, your vastu is all wrong. I mean, this should be a kitchen where you have built your drawing room. And if I take my uncle seriously, a lot of expenditure will go through and I will start changing my home, make it more vastu compliant. The main gate may be from the east, but Vastu says the entry should be from the west, so I'll go all around. I'll do all of that, but then nobody remains unemployed forever. In 6 months I get a job. The kid's arm is not going to be in sling forever. A month later the kid is hopping all over the place. And the grandmother at 93 either has to be in remission or pass away. One way or other the problem is solved. And then hey, so Vastu did it. Now this reinforces some strange kind of faith and certain strange kind of things which we never really question as to how is it that if my kitchen were here and the drawing room were there and, you know, just intermixing them, why should that heal my child's arm or get me a job? And of course, you know, one of the earlier speakers talked about this morning. Today, especially at the very least among the educated class, we all know who's responsible for a girl child. And yet we always blame the mother for it. Why? It is a big sociological issue which causes enormous trauma because we are not scientifically tempered. We are not willing to listen to reason. We are almost beginning to operate as if the world of faith and the world of reason are two different worlds which never meet. This is not to say that we are the only ones in the world who go too much by the world of faith. I mean, rest of the world also has its little pockets of similar issues. I don't know if you have heard of Benny Hinn show. The world-renowned faith healer who would come on the television, and there'll be people in wheelchairs and on crutches, and he will do some great hand movements, and hey presto, people will start standing up from the wheelchairs and come and lay prostrate before him. And this used to happen repeatedly as a television show. The Benny Hinn show was one of the most famous shows for years. And in 2010, the whole scam was busted by CBC. You just go to the Google and say Benny Hinn fraud, and you will see the number of stories which come there as to exactly how it was busted, exactly how there were plants inside, and many of those people who would get up from the wheelchair were all his own people in his employ and so on and so forth. I don't know the details. But the fact of the matter is, of course, we know our own stories of the miracle men, and how somewhere in Gujarat they told the women, we will double your jewelry, so every woman gives the jewelry, and then the sadhus, completely gone somewhere. So the point is, the lack of scientific temper has costs of many other kinds as well. So I was saying that we operate as if the two are two different worlds which don't talk to each other. Because we very often repeatedly say, oh, but of course science doesn't have an answer to everything. Now we know that science doesn't have an answer to everything. What science does is to try and answer the questions raised by scientific temper and try to find solutions employing scientific methods. That's all that the science does. But in the world of faith, we believe that because it is faith, you could not question it. You should not question it, because faith by definition cannot be questioned, because it's a matter of faith. We will come to that, but let me tell you about how actually even areas which were traditionally in the areas or realm of faith can be questioned and brought under a questioning temper if we have the scientific temper. Let me give an example. Supposing I ask you whether astrology is a matter of faith, or is it a matter of science, or is it utter nonsense? The fact will be that no matter which of the three schools you rigidly belong to, you would be lacking in scientific temper if you stick to that view, because in none of the three cases are you open to questioning. You say it is science, or you say it is faith, there is no question about it, and or you say it's utter rubbish and I don't want to listen to anything else. Now supposing we say, now what is astrology? Astrology, they say, is how you link the heavens or the constellations with people's behavior or people's characteristics, let us say. Now at one level, you can say scientifically that a child who is born in deep winter, let us say, and a child which is born in deep summer in the higher latitudes is particularly likely to have very different characteristics, because the food that the child may be given, the winter child, what it may consume may be very different from what a summer child may be consuming. As a consequence of which, the personalities, the health level, one kind of food may put on more weight, the other may be a little more anemic and weaker. But the fact is, there could be some differences that could come up if a child is born in winter versus a child is born in summer. Now, constellation being nothing but a proxy to seasons, because every month, for instance, the constellation significantly keeps changing, and a year later it's back to where it was. So if you employ constellations as a proxy to seasons, you could talk about a correlation between seasons or constellations and the characteristics of people at a very broad level. Actually, you don't even have to be that approximate. In fact, if you talk about schools today, supposing every school in India had a cutoff date for a child as July 31 for the matter of at what age the child will be admitted to the classroom. The child has to be 5-year-old to be in class 1, but the cutoff date is July 31. Now, so a child could be born on August 1st of this year or June 30th of the next year, all these children born between August 1 of this year and June 30 of next year will enter into the same class. Now when they are 5-year-olds, but the age is almost 11 months different, the abilities of the children to learn could vary significantly. In fact, many parents plan their child to be born in a certain month so that the kid will be, in fact they want the child to be youngest because they think they're giving that kid that much extra start in life because he'll be the younger one in the classroom. But what happens in reality is, when there are children in the same class, almost 11 months different, let us say in age, the older child tends to learn quicker, and as the older child learns quicker, the teacher very often points to that child to answer the questions, making a role model of it before the other kids, and this kid starts gaining in confidence, and before you know it, an August kid turns out to be a better performer than a June kid. And if you think it's only talk and not real, in fact, Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers comes out with a very interesting study where he says 135 kids out of 157 in the International Junior Soccer World Championship League were children born in August, September and October. 135 children out of 157 were born only in these 3 months, which means these 3 months are a better predictor of a child being in the International Soccer World Championship than anything else, because it's 82%. Now, in other words, one can say that, look, there is some correlation between the heavens, because the months are nothing but a proxy for the constellations, or vice versa. Constellations are a proxy for the month, and therefore it has some relationship to the broad characteristics of the children in a predictable manner. But to say that constellations on a week-by-week basis will be able to predict the individual future of everyone sitting over here, there is no such study which can actually support anything of that kind. As a matter of fact, a lot of studies have been done to see, for instance, whether there is a correlation between predictions and what subsequently happens. And a lot of behavioral economics, for which at least the 3 out of the last 5 economics Nobel Prizes have gone to, they show, for instance, that in reality, some people think they are lucky, some people think they are unlucky. Now, could it really be true that some people are lucky and some people are unlucky? Now, what happened is they took people from both sections, those who thought they were lucky and those who thought they were unlucky, and gave them a newspaper saying, you count the number of pictures in this newspaper. And in one of the pages at the bottom, it said, if you bring this section to the attention of the researchers, you'll get $100. It seems people who thought they were luckier, there was a much greater percentage of people who brought that to the attention and picked up the $100 than people who thought they were unlucky. Which means people who think they are lucky actually scan the environment wider than those who do not. So the point here is that areas which we traditionally used to think belong to the realm of faith, that I believe I am this and he believes he is this, can actually be subjected to scientific investigation. We often talk about faith. It's not as if faith doesn't have a value. If I work very hard and I have faith in myself, I'll win that medal. If I work very hard, I'm a cancer patient, I'm exercising as I'm told to, I take all the right medication that I'm supposed to, but I have faith that I'll come out of it, I will come out of it. But if I put all the medication aside and only try to pray and hope that I will recover, then one doesn't know what the answer will be. They say Francis Galton in Victorian times said, if praying is the result of good life and longevity and healthy life, then preachers, clergy should live longer than average people. But he found actually they were living lesser than lawyers. So which means, how can prayer by itself be helping? But the point that we are making is even an issue of that kind can be actually put to scientific test. So I will stop by saying that we have a case as a society to introspect, are we sufficiently scientifically tempered? Because we seem to go too much by faith, too much by intuition. We often set up all kinds of committees, but when the results come, we never want to work on it because we don't believe in a methodical scientific processes, scientific methods, and scientific temper. Thank you very much.